is now New Zealand's cup.
Since the famous words were first uttered in 1995, there's been non-stop drama off and on the water for Team New Zealand.
Wow, there's nothing in this.
The Kiwis now just one win away from the America's Cup.
This is like nothing we've ever seen, nothing I've ever seen.
It's the most exciting day of all of our lives, and we wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
One of the most incredible comebacks, not only in the sport of sailing, but in the world of sport.
From the remarkable Oracle defeat to losing a mast mid-race.
Oh my goodness, just disaster for Team New Zealand. Mast snapped right in half, rig over the side. Unbelievable disaster.
Now their rivals have also snapped, likening Team New Zealand style in Barcelona to a communist state.
Just thought it was another episode in the Brad versus Dolt show. It always comes up when those two are involved in a regatta. There's always some clash point.
Kia ora, I'm Amanda Gillies, and today on The Detail, the America's Cup. Team New Zealand and Grant Dalton are the defending champs and, in a controversial move, opted not to host the event in Auckland this year, but in Barcelona. The Challenger Regatta is underway, but their team rivals, Lingy and Brad Butterworth, are now criticising their running of the high-profile event. It's sharp and personal, likening their style to a communist state, claiming there's too much focus on money, not enough focus on pursuing a vision for the sport and building a wider partnership with competing teams, and insisting they're being shut out of decision-making. America's Cup correspondent Todd Nile broke the story for Stuff. He's in Barcelona for the event.
I suppose it's not unusual in an America's Cup for one challenger or another at some point to have a go at the defender, because the America's Cup being what it is, the rules are written by the defender in conjunction with a chosen challenger of record. So the rules are often slightly tilted in the favour of the defender, which is what the America's Cup is all about. So at some point, someone's going to have a grumble. And this time, in an interview that I arranged with Brad Butterworth, who's on the board of Alinghi Red Bull Racing, and was also with their co-general manager, Michelle Hodara, they went through quite a list of things that they didn't really think they liked, although it has to be said when pressed, okay, so if you had the cup, what would your plan be? There also wasn't a lot of detail there. So they knew what they didn't like, but they didn't really have a detailed alternative version of it, if you like.
But to say the words liken it to a communist state, your sort of heart must have skipped a beat and thought, here's a good headline. Do you think it's all about the headline for Brad Butterworth?
He is the master of the rather droll one-liner, if you like, the odd little quip. And I guess that wasn't in the middle of a long, lengthy explanation. That was, a line that he threw in. And look, to be fair, I don't know that there's a great, long, warm relationship between him and Grant Dalton, who, of course, is the head of Team New Zealand and the event company. But they went through a list of things that they thought wasn't really in the spirit of what they think the cup should be, although there's really not a lot going on in this cup in terms of rules and the way things that are set up. That is significantly different from previous ones.
So what are their biggest problems? What are their biggest gripes this year?
So the theme seemed to be that they believed the emphasis on the way the event was being run by Team New Zealand and being set up was that it was all about making money and making money from the challengers. They pointed out that they pay millions in entry fees just to be there, which they say wasn't the case back in Valencia in 2007 when they organised the event. And there are requirements on teams. One of them is a sustainability initiative that they have a hydrogen-powered chase boat, which they have to buy or build their own. And in the Linghi's case, they bought the Team New Zealand design one built in China. They felt that was an unnecessary burden on a team. And they got down to little stuff like the rules of the event say that they can't just sell their own clothing and merchandise from their base inside the cup commercial zone. So they've set up a store outside. But this was the level of things that they didn't like about it.
God, they sound a bit desperate. Have we heard from Grant? Has he responded to this?
Yeah, he's not had a lot to say. And the standard response from them, and I guess in the past from other defenders as well, is, well, if you don't like it, the simple answer is to be good enough to win it, and then you can set it up the way you want to. And that was really the extent of it. Plus, at the point that the interview was done, Alinghi was 4-0 down in the semi-final series. So Grant Dalton did add the line, maybe they should be concentrating on their own sailing effort.
Fair point. Now, you are there, Todd. We are all very jealous. But how would you describe the running of their event? Is it going well?
Yeah, it seems to be ticking along okay. They've got, there are fan zones, not just the regular Cup village that New Zealanders might know from Auckland when the Cup's been there, but they also have fan zones with big screens on a couple of the beach locations, and the race course is set quite close to the beaches, so you can't work out necessarily who's in front, but you can sit on the beach and watch the boats racing up and down. And there do seem to be reasonable numbers in the main Cup village in town at the moment, although it's not heaving, but remember we're still partway through the Challenger Series. This is not yet the America's Cup itself.
When you look at the crowds, where are the people from? Are there many Kiwis that have gone over for it, or is it mainly people from Spain, or, who is making up those crowd numbers?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to be scientific, but walking through the Cup village, there does seem to be a disproportionate number of New Zealanders, I guess, identified often by wearing some kind of Team New Zealand merchandise. And just from talking to the odd one or two, at this stage, they do seem to be people who have some kind of connection to someone in the event or someone in the team. But I think, I was in Valencia in 2007, and when we got to the America's Cup match itself, there was a huge influx of New Zealanders, not just those who were lucky enough to be able to fly up from New Zealand, but from around Europe, where you can get into this part of Spain with discount airlines pretty cheaply and pretty easily, to the extent in 2007 where there was sort of an unofficial almost stadium, if you like, that was dubbed the Woolshed, which was just New Zealand fans watching a big screen.
This is too close to call the seventh match. Who's got it? By 2 seconds. What a way to finish this extraordinary match.
Oh, that sounds like fun, though. The fact, though, Todd, that it is in Spain and not here in New Zealand, what's your view on that?
I guess initially I was quite surprised, because that was always the way New Zealand had done it. It wasn't always the way it had been done in previous Cups. The San Francisco outfit took it to Bermuda, and of course Alinghi itself, not having the open sea, took it to Valencia because they couldn't stage it in Switzerland. But the argument was that Team New Zealand needed to earn more from the event to help it mount a winnable defence. And I suppose when you look at it here, the Cup in a European context and the scale of it, and the commercial activity around it, you can sort of understand that it becomes a bigger event being in Europe, which is a huge market, of course, and easier for other teams and other sponsors that are based in Europe. So it kind of makes sense, painful though it is for New Zealand fans who believe it should be there. And Grant Dalton has said that the deal they got from Barcelona has helped significantly to fund the sailing part of the operation, although they never give numbers. But this is also not new. Alinghi, in their complaining about the focus on making money, the reminder there was they got 90 million euros from Valencia and the Valencia region as a hosting fee in cash back in 2007, which was more than the profit they ended up making. So it is a big commercial event when it's set in Europe.
Has there been any backlash, though, Todd?
There are some local groups. Several of them are called No America's Cup, which are part of a local coalition of community groups, big social media presence, who see the America's Cup as part of mass tourism, which they say is making life difficult for locals in Barcelona. There's a lot of Airbnb accommodation here, which they say should be made available for local people. And mass tourism is a big issue. The latest figures show that in any one month, there's 100,000 tourists a night in Barcelona. In a month, there's 450,000 cruise ship passengers that pass through in some form. So it is a very big part of Barcelona. And so there are protests. There's been some quite fun ones where they've gone down to the beach with banners and protested, and the police amazingly have come along with police tape to stop them taking their protest into the water. So it does appear to be a small group, but it is a protest that does reflect local concerns about the impact of mass tourism on their city.
Just on the flip side, I remember when it was in Auckland last time, it was such a magical feel and we just got behind it in such a big way. Can you anticipate that happening there this year? Obviously, when it gets closer next month, do you think they will mirror what happened here last time?
I think they'll get behind it in a different way, though. I mean, I think the America's Cup is somehow bigger in New Zealand than almost anywhere else. We have a long, successful history. For some reason, it really triggers something in New Zealand fans. If you think about those numbers that I talked about with tourism, you will see a lot of activity in the Cup villages, and there will be a lot of people who come to Barcelona. I think they're talking 2.5 million visitor nights. But I suppose if you put that in the context of the volume of tourism that passes through anyway, I guess it won't be the standout attraction in town. I could be proved wrong. It will be big, but it will be big alongside other big things that are going on in Barcelona where that wasn't the case, in Auckland where it was the big thing.
Now I want to talk about the actual America's Cup event next month. How confident are you that Team New Zealand will win? Have we got this?
Well, I'm confident from what we've seen that Team New Zealand can win, but, it's sport. The preliminary regatta and the round robins of the Challenger Series, which Team New Zealand competed in, they looked really good. And they have more things up their sleeve in terms of other equipment and better sails that they believe will make them faster than what we've seen so far. But when you watch the Challenger Series, unexpected things happen. I think the feeling might have been with the semi-final between Luna Rossa and American Magic. Perhaps it was going to be more one-sided than it turned out to be. And things have happened to Luna Rossa that have never happened before. Big technical failures, getting caught out and being marooned on the course. So Team New Zealand has certainly got all the ingredients to win it again, but it has to do it in a sporting context.
Now, journalist and sailor Richard Gladwell has been covering the America's Cup since 1983. He would normally be waterside with Todd Niall, but this year he's having to cover it from Auckland.
I mean, I'm sort of not that enthused with the way it's being run either, but...
Why not?
It's just the way the media side of it's been set up. There's a massive event organisation in there now, which, Team New Zealand will say, well, we're sponsored by Barcelona, we've got to, give the value back to them. So it's completely Barcelona orientated. They want to run an event that's, in my mind's quite sterile, whereas the America's Cup's not about that. It's all about the biffo. And, that starts on shore and continues on water. The way they go about the design, and everyone's trying to second guess. It's spy versus spy type stuff, whereas that's just completely evaporated, this cup. The sole little flashpoint was that, communist statement from Brad. But, I mean, that'll spark will die down. No one will take that particularly seriously. But, you've then got to question what's going on. Because, you've only got to look at the event, and when there's no media conferences this time for the first time since ever. Certainly the modern era of the Cup. And I mean, those are the points that, everyone remembers. Like, you remember Jimmy Spittle coming out of saying, wouldn't it be great if we came back from, 8-1 down?
I think the question is, imagine if these guys lost from here. What an upset that would be. I mean, they've almost got it in the bag. That's my motivation. That'd be one hell of a story. That'd be one hell of a comeback. And that's the kind of thing that I'd like to be a part of.
Still too soon to bring that up, Richard.
But the point with that is that, You know, when you went to those media conferences, I mean, the whole floor was jammed with, you know, media from the States. It was easy for people to come in from New Zealand. There was a massive amount of media there that were just actually trying to stir up trouble. But I mean, that's what they get their headlines out of, and of course it made headlines.
And it keeps them relevant.
Yeah, and then you went, you know, after the formal conference is over, you went down the back there, and there's, you know, Dean Barker and Spittle down there holding court, and everyone was just clustering around them as big scrum went down. Well, this time there's no media conferences at all, except at the start of the thing. I mean, the PR people have, you know, really got this event by the throat.
And has that been organised through Grant, or he's allowed that to happen?
Well, they've signed off on it. I mean, nothing ever happens in there, not so much with Grant, but it's the who's ever America's Cup event who's running it, which is basically the defence arm of Team New Zealand.
When they said, right, sorry, we're not going to have it in New Zealand next time, we're going to have it in Barcelona, what went through your mind? What did you think?
Well, they had to do it because they needed to get the Cup back into where it was in 2007 with a lot of interest, and the only real way of doing that was to go into Europe and, you know, make it easy for these guys. I mean, people in Europe, because of what had happened in New Zealand with COVID, although a lot of people would have come in here and seen the Cup and seen the boats sailing and so wasn't that neat, they couldn't do that. So the easiest way then was to take it to Europe, not so much for the challengers and the club's point of view, but for the public's point of view, so they could get down there and see these boats and, you know, hear the sizzle rather than eat the steak. And, you know, they could all, and you remember what happened in 2007 was a lot of Kiwis and others just came into Valencia and saw the Cup there and what was going on, and, you know, they just sit on the banks and drink beer and, you know, have a great day out.
Surely we want to be doing that in New Zealand, though.
Yes,
being defending champs.
Yes, but I mean, you've got to do that, you've got to get an event that's got some traction, and I mean, the event had no traction.
Yeah.
You know, after what happened in 2007, what happened with the court case, never revived after that. And then when it did come to New Zealand, you know, we had COVID. So, you know, the whole function of it going to Europe is really a reaction to the COVID pandemic.
Do you think, though, Kiwis care about this regatta? Are we getting in behind it, or are we bored and sort of being a protest team for the fact that it's not held here?
I think people were initially probably moderately relaxed, you know, like I was about, you know, it being overseas. Now that they've seen the event start up, realise what's coming, having seen, you know, 2 events here, 3 events here, they realise now what they're missing out on. And I think the whole levels just of interest is just really flattened off. You get obviously some diehards that'll go after Team New Zealand, but I mean, it's almost down to being a matter of academic interest, to be honest. You know, they've done that deal with TV3, which, you know, I don't know whether it's sort of working or not. I mean, TV3, I'm sure will say that it is, but the fact is that the Cup's on at a really awkward time for people to watch. I mean, I'm covering it having to work a, you know, night shift, and it's the same as if you watched it. I mean, I can tell you now that racing often doesn't finish till 4:30 in the morning New Zealand time, which is, you know, it's getting pretty late. Sunset over there is 8 o'clock, so they can race up till, you know, 6 o'clock or so there. So
you're not getting me up at that hour.
No,
Richard,
so I mean that's the reaction of people. They sort of look at that and say, well, you know, I've got to go to work in the morning. Can I get up and stay up till 12, and then from 12 watch the Cup, watch it sit there being delayed, waiting for the wind to come in, and all those sort of shenanigans that go on, and then trundle off to work with, you know, eyes hanging down on my shoulder blades.
Would you like to be there right now?
Oh, I looked at it pretty hard, but the cost of going there was just horrendous. I mean, I got a cost of $37,500 just for accommodation for 35 days.
Wow.
So and that was with airfares and everything else on top of it. So there's plenty of price gouging going on there. And really what I'm doing, I think, is the way that, you know, a lot of events are going to have to be covered in future, where you can set yourself up at home, which is what I've done. You can pull all these inputs in, you can sit there, you know what you're not seeing, and it's not very much, and you know that you are seeing a hell of a lot more than what you see on the water, because normally I would be there as a photographer. Last 4 cups I've been on the water as a photographer, and often as close to the boats as from me to the wall away with a pair of binoculars. I don't regret not going. I mean, I wish I was there, but it's the way of the future.
Nice one, boys.
And as Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli approach the finish line, there you have it. They have won their semi-final. They are off to the Louis Vuitton Cup final to face Ineos Britannia.
Yes!
The Louis Vuitton Cup finals get underway this week between Italy's Luna Rossa and Ineos Britannia. The 37th America's Cup match kicks off next month.
Completely different to 24 hours ago when they were whooping and hollering and spraying the champagne. But this is the America's Cup and things change in the blink of an eye.
Definitely a roller coaster ride, the America's Cup.
Boys.
A real steep, fast one at times in both directions. That's what keeps it so exciting and interesting, and that's why all the teams are involved.
Who's going to win this cup?
The rule in the cup that you never bet against the defender. And the other thing is that the cup's always the defenders to lose.
If we do win it, should it be brought back to New Zealand?
Well, I think, short answer is that they've got to have a serious look at that. But, there's issues there on 3 sides, if you like. One is the New Zealand media and the attitude that they have towards the America's Cup, and that it should be here and it should be free and you should be paying for it. Well, I mean, that's just not realistic. The other issue was with, Grant Dalton and Team New Zealand, who's got a bit of an attitude against the New Zealand government. So, they've got to resolve that. And then, there's all the other stuff that goes around it. They've got to be able to fund it out of here, and how do you do that? So,
is Grant Dalton the right person to run this for us right now and going forward?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable what he's done since 2003. I mean, 2003, that team should have been on its death throes and never to be seen again. Yet he got it up into the point where the following year they were in there as, the challenger of record in 2007 against 12 other teams. And they've kept on going like that. They've made, real technology advances and what he's doing with it now is they're taking that into spin-off technology. So, while the likes of Brad and a few others are complaining about these hydrogen-powered foiling boats, I mean, they're the most amazing thing you've ever been on. And, once you see that going there, Toyota have seen it, and the other big manufacturers, they realise that that's the way of the future for fast ferries. You've got no sensation of being on a boat at all. It's got no G-forces when it turns, and it just goes through. It's probably steadier than riding on a bus down the road.
Will they have a beer at the end of this, Brad and Grant, or do you think they'll
I don't think so, no.
Give each other a wide berth?
Well, Brad will never be allowed in the Team New Zealand base. So.
That is fair. I won't argue that, Richard. That's all for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and New Zealand On Air. Thank you to Sail World's Richard Gladwell and Todd Niall from Stuff, which is providing live coverage along with 3. This episode was produced by Alexia Russell and Gwen McClure and engineered by Jeremy Ansell. I'm Amanda Gillies. Matua.